Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Phillies Daily on the Fan Arch Podcast Network. I am your host, Chris Moore, and the Phillies dropped an ugly one last night, a 4-1 loss in Washington to open up the four-game stand. Nationals still a team in contention for one of those National League wildcard spots. Interested to see what they do at the trade deadline. There's been talk of them trading away potentially James Wood, who scored a first-inning run against the Phillies last night. But they are a young team kind of in the midst of rebuilding and trying to find things out. But obviously, they're a little bit of ways away from even the point that the Phillies are trying to catch, which is those Dodgers, Brewers, and even the Braves. And the Phillies come out last night and just sluggish, right? Game three of, like I said, 13 games in a row without a day off. They travel from Philadelphia to Washington, which obviously not a long haul, certainly something that the professional should be able to handle, but just looked sluggish, looked off, didn't look super engaged really. And listen, you'll have this. They play 162 games this season. You're going to have days that you just chalk up to, we just didn't have it today. Came out flat, never had anything to get them going. Give credit to Foster Griffin from the Nationals. He really shut them down, threw the ball really well. And they just never looked like they had much life, even after Brandon Marsh's home run to cut it to 2-1. They just never looked super engaged, never looked like they were there to win the game. They were kind of there to play the game, and whatever it was, it was. And again, it happens. You play 162 games. It's not football. It's not the NFL where you're once a week. You're playing every day. And some days you just have it, and some days you don't. So I'm not pinning that on anybody. I'm not, I'm not reading into it any more than what it was, which was just an off day on a Monday against a guy who ended up throwing the ball well. And Foster Griffin, we'll get into it a little bit later, but he's had a good season. He's got an ERA around 3.3. He's not a bad pitcher. He's been very, very solid. And yeah, a left-hander. And the Phillies, as we know, don't have many right-handed bats that are performing anyway right now to take advantage of it. It's a day that you'd like to see, JT Realmuto and Trey Turner kind of step up, and it ended up being Brandon Marsh who drove in their only run. The one bright spot that came from yesterday was Alan Ronhell. Had a really good day, 5 innings, gave up just the one run, kept him in it. Kept him very much in it, actually. Tim Meza kind of struggled his way through the first, gave up a run, and then Ron Hell came in, and Don Mattingly said at this point we're kind of committed to him. We've made a commitment, at least for the time being, that Alan Ron Hell is going to be the number 5 starter. Some days he'll get an opener, some days he'll get the start. Tim Meza, right? The morning that I say he should get more high leverage spots, he comes in as the opener and gives up a run. That's a different beast for a reliever to start the game. You know what I mean? It's just a different feel, a different warm up, different way of doing things. So, not another one I'm not reading too much into. And again, Ron Hell, 5 innings, gave up 1 run, threw the ball really well. Definitely, I think, earned a couple more opportunities to try and stick around and steady the spot in the rotation. The Phillies, look at it this way. They got in a spot where we would typically see Andrew Painter. They got 6 innings, gave up 2 runs. That's, more than you could ask for, considering we're looking for 5 innings and 3 runs out of Aaron Nola. If you can get 6 innings and 2 runs given up out of this spot in the rotation, whether it's Alan Ron Hell or somebody else, you'll sign up for that every day of the week. So I think the pitching did its job. I think Ron Hell looked good. Wasn't great, wasn't spectacular, but certainly earned another opportunity. And the Phillies were in the game. Brandon Marsh's home run makes it 2-1, and then Seth Johnson comes in, his ERA near 8, and he did exactly what he's done all season. Gives up a couple of runs, and that was pretty much once the Nationals scored those couple of runs to go up 4-1, you knew it was over. The offense just didn't have it. But point being, Ron Hell threw the ball well, and that was kind of the big encouraging thing. I think probably a lot of Phillies fans would have signed up for, if we lose but Ron Hell looks good, we'll take it. Because that's kind of where you're at right now. You can't win them all, but you can hope that you maybe found somebody who can fill Painter's spot in the rotation and, be productive and get outs for you. The offense, kind of showing that lack of right-handed hitting. Foster Griffin, as I said, not a bad pitcher. He's had a good, solid year. He's part of the reason the Nationals are where they are, competing for that National League wild card spot. But, you'd expect a better effort from this Phillies lineup. They just never looked really competitive at all. And yeah, they got shut down, quite frankly. Looking at the Nationals are tied with the Cubs and Padres for that final National League wildcard spot after the game last night. Phillies a game and a half up on that, and the Braves lost as well. So the Phillies still 6.5 games behind the Braves in the National League East. So they didn't lose a ton there, but it was very much a what's the word I'm looking for? It illuminated a glaring hole in this Phillies roster, which is the right-handed hitting. And it's again they have multiple holes, and I don't think they have a ton of pieces to fill them all, and that's kind of the problem, that I'm having right now, seeing much to get super excited about, for how this team's going to perform in October, because I just don't think that they have the pieces to add what they need to add to close in on the teams like the Dodgers and Brewers and Braves. They've won some games, absolutely. They're playing, solid baseball here in May and June, but when you get to October and you have to beat every team you play, every game, they're putting their best foot forward to try and win that game. You don't get that in the regular season, right? You get managers are managing for the 162. In the playoffs, they're managing for one, and that's the game right in front of them. And so it's a much different feel. And, when a solid lefty can come out and give 7 1/3 and give up 1 run and completely shut you down, that's a concern. And again, it illuminates what I feel is one of the 2 or 3 glaring holes on this roster. And yeah, it showed up. And that's, we can kind of roll right into the trade deadline talk and what is the number one priority for this team, because to me, there's 3 options. A starter, because whether it's Aaron Nola or Alan Ron, neither one of them I feel like is somebody, at least right now, that you're full on trusting in game 4 of a playoff series. Now you could go with a 3-man rotation and see what happens. I guess that would kind of be on Sanchez, Wheeler, and Luzardo if they feel up for it. I'm sure Wheeler would be all for it. And if this team feels like they have a chance to win, then that is certainly an option to go with. But you have to get there, and relying on 2 of your 5 starters, to win every time out. When you're talking about Sanchez and Wheeler, I mean, you're pretty much relying on those 2 to win every time out, and they're going to win more often than not. But boy, if one of them hits any kind of skid, any kind of slump, which is not out of the question, they go on a 5-6 game start streak where they're off a little bit and you're not winning every one of those games. This wild card race is, as much as we feel like the Phillies are comfortable, again, they're a game and a half to the good. It's not anything insurmountable. And so they still have a lot of work to do. And so, yeah, does a starter to fill in this kind of opening they have in the rotation? Is that the number one priority? Is it a right-handed bat? Because as we just saw last night, a good lefty, not a great lefty, doesn't need to be an outstanding left-hander, just somebody good. Sandy Koufax, Clayton Kershaw, nobody's putting Foster Griffin in that category, but he certainly looked like it last night. So, I mean, Kyle Schwarber looked lost, I felt like. I mean, he was swinging it late on an 89-mile-an-hour cutter his first couple at bats. It wasn't, I mean, that's arguably the best hitter in your lineup, and just looked completely lost. So, is it a right-hand bat? Is it somebody that can thump his way to really carrying the lineup against lefties? Or is it, to me, and I think this is the answer to me, is it the bullpen? Because again, you're in the game last night. I mean, despite the offense looking completely sluggish and lackluster, and Brandon Marsh hits that home run, it's a 2-1 game. I mean, you have a ton of guys in the lineup that can run into something and tie the game up. but you have nobody in the bullpen to call on. You bring in Seth Johnson, it's 4-1, the game's over. Like, I mean, again, I've talked about it. There's the circle of trust. Well, Brad Keller's on the IL. Jose Alvarado's ERA is now near 7, and Duran and Kirkering can't pitch every day. Tim Mays, I feel like, has given himself an opportunity to maybe get into one of those high leverage spots. But use him as an opener yesterday, so you don't have him as an option. You're not going to use Duran in the 7th inning, when you're losing 2-1. Or not going to use Kirkering in that spot either. So you have nobody. You have nobody that you feel like you can bring in and keep you in the game. So I mean, honestly, if it is Game 5 of the National League Division Series, and the Phillies find themselves up 4-3, let's say, after 5 innings, Christopher Sanchez is giving you all he's got. He's 95 pitches to get through 5 innings. You're up 4-3. Who is pitching innings 6 and 7 to get it to Kirkering in the 8th and Duran in the 9th? Nobody I trust. Hell no. Absolutely not. So to me, it's the bullpen, because you can find your way to a couple of runs against left-handed pitching, right? You can figure some things out, and the addition of Derek Hill, and I thought I was impressed. Like, he just seems like a solid guy that winning baseball teams have. So you have him, right? Is he a game changer? No, but you have pieces, right? Trey Turner can get on base, can steal bases. JT Realmuto, we're a long way away from October. I have to believe JT Realmuto is going to be more productive come September and October than he is right now, and has been so far this season. And then, Schwarber, Harper, and Brandon Marsh, obviously, like, you're hoping one of those guys can come up with something against whatever left-hander you're facing. Like, I think there are enough pieces that offensively you feel like you can get by. And, the rotation, I mean, yeah, it's a I don't want to say it's a concern, because it's not right now, but if any one of Luzardo, Wheeler, Sanchez miss any kind of time, it becomes a big concern. Like, there's just no depth to the rotation. So you can make an argument for any of the three. You can make an argument for any of the bullpen, the rotation, or the lineup needing improvement. Problem is, they don't have the pieces to improve them all. They don't. Like, there's nothing in this farm system that is going to fetch everything that this lineup needs. So that's, to me, I go to the bullpen, because you have in your lineup Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Brandon Marsh, Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, Derek Hill. Like, you have Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott. I forgot about Boehmer, talking about right-handers that need to hit against lefties. You have enough guys that you should be able to rely on to find a way to improve, get themselves going, and be able to find a way to beat left-handed pitching in the postseason. The rotation, it's thin. We know that, but you have your big three, and you just have to rely on the fact that your big three, can make it happen. The other thing I like about addressing the bullpen and making a revamped bullpen the priority, I think you can do that without giving up your Aiden Millers or your Gage Woods. Like, I think you can get good bullpen guys. You won't get great bullpen guys, but I don't think they need. Kirkering's been really, really good, and Duran's been great. You need 2 to 3 guys that you can rely on to get you 3 out. At least one, probably 2 needs to be a lefty. And then a third that could be right-handed, but if he's also lefty and gets outs, great. But that's, to me, like I said, you can address the bullpen without giving up any of your top prospects. And I know that we've gotten to the point where Phillies' top prospects kind of flounder. And do we really care about, do we trust that the Phillies are going to develop their top prospects into what they're supposed to be? And I understand that concern, but this farm system is so thin that giving away the little bit of leverage that you have in the farm system just seems sketchy to me. And again, for a team that you're a big underdog to win the World Series as it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're giving up Gage Wood and Aiden Miller, that needs to be a move that I know is going to put us in the class of the Dodgers. And I don't think that move is out there. I think right now we are relying on it's Major League Baseball, it's the postseason. We could beat the Dodgers if things go right. So I'm not giving up my top prospects. Not to say that I'm keeping them forever, but I'm just not giving them up this season right now to because we might be able to beat the Dodgers. You know what I mean? Like it's just not worth. I don't think that move is out there. Byron Buxton appears very committed to Minnesota. Even Mike Trout. I think it's possible Trout waives that no trade clause to come to Philly, but it's not a guarantee. So, shopping those two, I just, like I said, I think you have other guys that you could get good bullpen help for, reliable bullpen help. And then a game like last night that you lose 4-1, you may win 3-2 because you improve the bullpen, because the bullpen gets you through that seventh and eighth inning, keeps you in it, and the offense finds a way to scratch a couple more across. Like I think the bullpen more so than a starter because you're using the bullpen pretty much every day. A starter you're using once every 5 days, and a right-handed bat. Yes, he's going to play every day, but I think if you're going to get one that's going to make an impact, you're going to have to give up too much, And like I said, not that Byron Buxton's not worth some of those pieces, but is Byron Buxton enough to make you feel like you can beat the Dodgers? You are positive you're as good as the Dodgers. I don't think that move's out there. And so if that move's not out there, I can't give up the slightest little bit of good prospects that the Phillies have, especially when the Dodgers are going to get better too. I mean, everybody thinks that Tarek Skubal's going to the Dodgers, right? So, trade talk and what this team's number one priority is a big talking point to me. It's the most important thing going on right now for the Phillies is what is the number one priority. It's something we're going to talk about a lot over the next month. We get closer and closer to the month of July. And so, yeah, the trade deadline is going to be vital. And, to me, it's the bullpen. But is it right-handed? Is it a right-handed hitter to you? Is it the starting rotation or are you on my side? It's the bullpen. Let me know what you think. I vote bullpen though. I just think that's you can get the biggest impact on your win losses while also making the smallest impact on the farm system, right? Putting it in its simplest terms. I think that's the way that I would go. But Phillies look sluggish in the opener. Hopefully pick it up and kind of find a spark, find some energy tonight and get back to their winning ways against the Nationals. Game 2 of the 4-game set tonight in Washington. So this has been Phillies Daily on the Fan Arch Podcast. Now, excuse me. On the Fan Arch Podcast Network, I'm your host, Chris Moore. Have a good day, everybody.